Hello, everyone. You are tuned in to one of the series that we are conducting these days for students who are PhD aspirants. I'm Dr. Maina Chawla Singh. I have been a professor both in India and overseas. The last stint was in the US at Georgetown and at American universities. I bring to you this series because I feel that in the counseling space and career coaching, we probably don't do enough workshops for students who are aspiring for PhDs. We do a lot more for the graduate students. And I want to do a variety of these sessions so that students who are doing their PhDs or thinking about it have an understanding of things that are waiting for them from different points of view. So in recent weeks, I have offered workshops on study abroad PhD, a generic one with some tips. Another one which was on how the PhD SOP is different from the SOPs that you would do for other things. Then I've done a session on PhD in the social sciences and policy studies. So if you're in social sciences, what does it mean for you? PhD is a long haul. It's a time investment of 4 to 6 years, depending on where you're going to do it and the university program. The good news, as you know, is that there are fewer decisions to make because you already have a very good idea of your subject terrain. If you are doing multidisciplinary work, you know what the intersections of that research are going to be. So the decisions about subject are not as critical as they are for when you're going for grad school or for undergrad. And there are a little more funding opportunities, more fellowships that you can use. So there is that. The process itself is not much easier. You still need to write a really good research proposal or an SOP. And you need to be really sure that you can live with that particular subject for a long haul for PhD for 4 to 6 years. The process can be similar, but with some differences. So for the process, you will need to consult very specifically with your counselors or the websites where you are interested in going. You'll have to check the fees, the funding options, the application requirements, and of course the student visa. So those are things that you need to do like for any other program for study abroad. As I said, there are lots of funding sources available for PhD aspirants. There are assistantships and there are other funded programs. So there are also fee waivers in many of the programs in some of the countries. Today, I'm dedicating a session here to looking at the prospects in 2 destinations. Destinations are places that you choose not just because of the place, but because of the programs also. However, I want to underline today that the place itself is also very, very important, because if you are surrounded in an ecosystem, which is good for your particular subject, you're going to learn that much more. So if you're in marketing or you're doing something to do with management, then you want to do something with finance, you want to be in a place where there is a lot of throbbing work going on, lots of industry related to that. If you are doing work on technology, you need to be somewhere close to a tech hub, because the whole atmosphere of the scholarship, the professors, the people who come in to speak at those universities is going to be influenced entirely by what is the ecosystem around. So for example, if you're looking at product management, you're looking at data, are you looking at data in a particular context? Are you interested in Asia? Are you interested in what is happening in Europe? So those are the ways in which you need to choose your destination as a combination between the program being offered by a university, the professor that you want to work with, and the ecosystem around that city in which you're going to be. Today, I'm going to speak a little bit more about 2 very specific destinations. Before I do that, I want to say that the opportunities for choosing a destination for PhD are immense. You can choose from plenty of options. There could be historic universities in Europe, and there could be universities in America, and there could be ambitious and high-tech institutions in Asia or Australia. So I'm focusing today on two destinations which are quite far from each other and quite different, but they have some similarities. They are Hong Kong and Israel. Hong Kong is not a country, as you know, it's a part of China. Hong Kong is a city and Israel is a country. They are both small in area, but they are big powerhouses, which is why I thought it would be interesting to offer some similarities and some comparisons for both of these destinations. I have personally been and traveled to both. I have lived in Israel and I've been closely associated with various industries and higher education in Israel. So I speak from personal experience. So both of these are big powerhouses. Let's speak a little bit about each. Hong Kong is the world's third largest global financial center. It used to be much more than it is today because it has a history and cultural legacy from it being part of Britain. In 1997, it went back to China because the lease on which Britain had taken it expired and it went back to China. So for that, you should Google and take a look at the history of Hong Kong, which is very, very fascinating. So today it's a part of China, but it's different from other cities because it has a cosmopolitan history and it has a very strong legacy for English, which is why compared to Shanghai and other places in China, Hong Kong is very different because it is definitely a part of China, but it has had a very different sense of its own identity. So the access that you would have in English would be very different than you would have elsewhere. It is a hub of trade, innovation, and cultural exchange. It has a globally ranked higher education system. And as I said, because of English, it is particularly suitable for students from India because language is not a problem. Although there are some courses being offered in Mandarin, if you're a PhD student, this does not apply to you. So there are tremendous research opportunities for international PhD students in Hong Kong, and I will speak a little bit more as we go along. It's a cosmopolitan city because it has had a history of many, many different international communities living in Hong Kong. It has been a melding of cultures. It's had its British influence and its Chinese presence today, more and more. All 8 universities in Hong Kong are well funded for research. So that's an important plus if you're thinking of a PhD. It has about 14,000 international students, which is what one of my research sources told me. It could be a little less, it could be a little bit more. So let me list a few of the main universities in Hong Kong. University of Hong Kong, Chinese University of Hong Kong, Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. These are some of the premier universities. They have excellent PhD research and they have scholarships for international students. So what are the important things that I would say go for choosing Hong Kong as a destination? So it's globally ranked higher education system, which is important. It has only 22 universities, but many of them are actually very, very highly ranked. It has an immigration arrangement. There is a 12-month stay post-degree. So that is important to many of the students. For PhD, it might be a little bit different. You would need to check the visa availability for extension after your PhD program. Because of its international history, it's also a welcoming city for international students. It was recently, a few years ago, voted as one of the best student cities in the world. So that's something for you to check out. Apart from just being a hub, it also has a lot of attractions. And in general, it has a lot to offer. Let's talk a little bit about the PhD. The PhD structure is actually still very similar to the structure in the UK, which is 3 to 4 years. And it's in English. You would be required to submit a final thesis, as you are in most PhD programs, all PhD programs actually. And the way to begin would be to approach a prospective supervisor to gain approval for your research proposal. Your research proposal, as I've said in a previous session, is extremely important. Check out a session on YouTube where I have spoken about how the SOP for a PhD is different. A research proposal if required, is actually even more of a challenge and needs more work, I will be doing a subsequent session on the research proposal for a PhD. So look out for that. Leverage Edu is a startup, and today it's India's top-ranking university admission study service, especially for study abroad. So if you have aspirations or you have friends who have aspirations for study abroad, you need to check out the Leverage Edu offerings. There is a full stack availability of services from the time that you express a desire for going to a dream university. There are psychometric tests. There are ways of helping you to set your goals, after which a head coach will be with you the entire journey. I want to say for all of this, there is a 30-minute free counseling session. So you can get us on all of the social media platforms. You can DM Leverage Edu and somebody will get back to you. So let me get back to my conversation about destinations. So as I said, your research proposal, if it's required, is going to be a very important document that needs a lot of depth in the way that you express both your vision for the research topic that you have, what you think will be your contribution, and establish how you as a researcher bring certain skills and certain passion to create a first-class PhD at the end of it. Everybody wants to graduate a really top-rate student. So when you write your proposal, you need to show and demonstrate how you will be that person. So I want to come back and say your transcripts and LORs are really important, and we will be looking at some of those in a subsequent session. Your interviews are also important. Not all universities want interviews, but many do. And then these days, those interviews will be online, and we have separate coaching for your interview preparation for you to be able to do really well when you apply for admission for study abroad. So I want to come now to the second destination, and I want to say a little bit about Israel as a background. Israel, as you know, is in the Middle East, but it's a very highly westernized country. The official languages are Arabic and Hebrew. However, all the PhD programs are going to be in English, so you don't really have to worry about that. Israel is a small country, but it's very, very dynamic. It's also very diverse. It has Tel Aviv, which is its financial center, and it's a very hip city, and it's on the Mediterranean with beaches. Jerusalem is its capital. It's a city of ancient heritage, and it is on the border of Israel. Even the climate within this small country is very different. The Mediterranean has these warm beaches, and Jerusalem has cold climate and pine trees, and a country and a climate that would be a little European, resemble a little bit of the European. Israel is booming in tech. If you have not heard the expression, I should tell you that it's been called the startup nation. It's been called the startup nation. And by the way, there's a book which is called the Startup Nation. It's called that because it has an amazing ecosystem that actually encourages and promotes entrepreneurial ventures. It has an ecosystem that encourages startups. And it's okay when startups don't work, because they say that there's a large percentage of startups which actually don't succeed. But the ones that succeed go zoom way up to the top. So that's an important thing, that it has an ecosystem which really promotes startups and amazing degrees of entrepreneurialism. That too is a word, believe me. So a little bit about Israel as a country, its diversity. It's also the #1 in the world for investment in R&D. And you know that when a country decides to spend a lot of money on research and development, then that is going to be the kind of place where you want to be for part of research. Unlike many other countries, and I will come to that, it also has a very high number of people who won Nobel Prizes. Anyway, it has some top-ranking universities. The oldest is the Technion, and I will speak a little bit more about the other universities. So Israel's cosmopolitan cities, its ancient heritage sites, and its stunning beaches make it really an unforgettable country in which to study your PhD. But as I said, the important thing is that it has exceptional education and research facilities. And it has about 1,300 PhDs graduating or finishing their thesis every year, which is a very, very high number. So the handful of reasons for studying a PhD in Israel are the investment in research, because Israel spends more on research and development than any other country, relatively speaking, for its size and its number of people. It has a startup culture, which means that it's very encouraging of new ideas, new ways of thinking. It has the highest number of startups per capita in the world, with many innovative tech companies based in Tel Aviv. It has a very international outlook. When you do a PhD in Israel, you can, especially if you do it in data or science or cyber security or any of those subjects which are to do with pure science or technology, it's very easy to then make the shift and get a fellowship to a top-ranking university in the US, for example. So the degree out of PhD is very highly ranked. Also, while you're doing a PhD in Israel, it's quite common for students to be working with their supervisors who are doing amazing research on their own. If you can assist a supervisor while they're writing a paper or a publication, and you can be a second author even while you're doing a PhD, that's a huge feather in your cap. Because as you know, if you're on the path to a PhD and scholarship, publications are really part of your life. Publications are the way that you demonstrate your own capability as a scholar and your ability to produce original and thought-provoking research. So being able to publish and publish with well-known names even before you finish your PhD is a huge attraction. I want to say something here also, which is another win-win for Israel. If you choose as a destination, that's something about the PhD tuition fees. So the tuition fees for PhD in many Israeli universities are very often waived for students. So that's a very important thing. All universities in Israel are government owned. So they don't have private universities. They have some private institutions, but the PhD in the government-owned universities. The PhD in Israel is 4 to 6 years, but a lot depends on the subject. The academic year in Hong Kong and many other places begins in September. In Israel, it begins in October. Guess why? They have a month, about 3.5 weeks of Jewish holidays, which occur in October, and everything shuts down for that. So they actually begin their academic year much later than in other places. So if you've been applying or you're thinking of applying and you have been late in a particular application cycle, you know that Israel starts much later. So it's October to August is their academic year. It has 9 universities, but it has had 12 Nobel Prizes. So that's a big thing to think about for Israel, especially if you're thinking of science, tech, cybersecurity, defense, anything to do with defense, equipment, military, anything to do with that. So the well-known universities, which also give very good scholarships, are the Technion. They have international scholarships. Then there are PhD fellowships at the Weitzman Institute of Science. Weitzman Institute is named after Weitzman, and it's an outstanding and globally ranked institution for the sciences, for biomedical engineering and for many such things. And they have done great work in immunology and disease control and all sorts of things. There are also university scholarships in Bariland University and at Tel Aviv University. Both of these are in Tel Aviv itself. The Weitzman Institute is only about an hour's drive from Tel Aviv. So this is something about the universities. And as I said, all the universities are publicly funded. that the private colleges typically don't award PhDs. So you will be working in a government-funded, publicly funded university. As I said, the language is English, so that's important. The PhD structure for Israel is a little bit more like in Europe and the USA. So it would be 4 to 6 years. An Israeli PhD might involve some formal training and preparation before you commence your independent research, which is also the case, as you know, in the US. So your supervisor will likely recommend a few courses for you to take at the university itself while you are sorting out how to proceed, or in the best way possible to proceed with your own independent research. So they might suggest relevant books and articles for you to consult as a prep to the research. Very often in Israel, they like you to submit a research proposal. The research proposal is very often, sometimes it could be for approval, which means that they will approve it and then give you admission, but sometimes they will just accept your proposal right away. Funding, let me say about both the places that both, I spoke a little bit about Israel and funding. I also want to say that Hong Kong universities are striving for student diversity. So they want international students and they want to improve their international research projects, which is why there are international student grants, which you should check out. As I said, in Israel, there's no standard tuition fee, and your program type can vary depending on the subject area and so on and so forth. Stay back visa is a little bit different in Israel compared to Hong Kong. It's easier in Hong Kong. In Israel, you have to apply for a B1 work visa. This is awarded by the Ministry of Interior to experts in their chosen field. And it allows for an international stay to stay on and work in Israel. Your requirements for visa, your specific application process, specific deadlines, of course, are things which you will explore in detail once you look at each program or once you look at your supervisor and you decide your destination. But I have to say that if you're looking at Asia Pacific and you're looking at Asian markets and you're looking at China and the Chinese economy and looking at various aspects of trade in the Asia Pacific, Hong Kong is the place for you. If you're looking at science, technology, innovation, startups, that kind of mindset, that kind of thinking, Israel is a very, very attractive destination for you. So this was my session about 2 destinations which are not usual ones. People will tend to look at USA, UK, Canada, and probably not look so quickly at Hong Kong and at Israel. So I hope you found this session interesting. We were hosting this on behalf of Leverage Edu. Get back to us, reach out to us. You have a 30-minute counseling session free waiting for you. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you. Cheers.